Raiders made the playoffs with him as their #1 receiver, and then he just fell off the face of the earth. This is one of the more fascinating situations and stories I've covered in a while because everyone's asking the same question. What happened to Hunter Renfrow? Many years ago, there was a college football player who came onto the scene out of nowhere. When I say he came out of nowhere, I mean it. He didn't even get offers coming out of high school, and matter of fact, he was only a 2-star recruit and had a walk-on at Clemson. Eventually down the road, he wouldn't just become a decent player for Clemson, he would become one of their star players. He even caught the game-winning touchdown pass in the national championship game against Alabama in a game in which he had 10 catches for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns. He finished his career at Clemson with over 2,000 total receiving yards. He then proceeded to go to the NFL and ball out, and no, that's not my opinion. The team he played for offered him a 2-year, $32 million contract. But weirdly enough, ever since signing that $32 million contract, he's disappeared. This is one of the more fascinating situations and stories I've covered in a while because everyone's asking the same question. What happened to Hunter Renfrow? As you can see right here, there are countless forums, I think that's what they're called, all over Reddit. Let me make this clear. This wasn't some randeezy that fell late into the NFL draft and didn't amount to a hill of beans. He was doing really good in the NFL. But then out of nowhere, within a snap of a finger, blink of an eye, whatever you want to call it, he's gone. He hasn't posted on social media, hasn't posted on Instagram, which is really weird because he's not one of these guys that doesn't post at all. He has over 100 pictures. There's many questions people have been asked about this guy even till this day. But however, it all circles back to the one. And I mean the one big question we're going to try to get to the bottom of in today's video. What really happened to Hunter Renfrow? Real quick, before we get into this video, just want to drop by and say major shout out to James for requesting this video. If you have any recommendations, leave a comment down below. And also major shout out to Old School Brawler for the $5 super chat on one of the recent videos. Completely unnecessary, but much appreciated. I know y'all hate it when your boy Matt jibber jabbers, so I'm not going to hold you too much. Let's get into it. Man, oh man, we got good old Hunter Renfrow. Come on, man. You already know to get into a story, we got to throw it all the way back to where things started. Mr. Hunter Renfrow grew up in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where he was only a 2-star recruit. Here's a fun fact for you. He was actually a very highly touted baseball player coming out of high school, and there was a ton of schools pursuing him to play that. According to Diamond Prospects, he was ranked as the 6th best outfielder in all of the state. But as you could guess, he wanted to play football. Now here's the problem with that. He wasn't as highly touted on the football field. He did play quarterback in high school, and there was 4 very small schools pursuing him. Gardner-Webb, Wofford, Presbyterian, and Appalachian State. Those aren't bad offers by any stretch of imagination, but he wanted to play at Clemson. That was his mission. That was his goal. So he decided, you know what? I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to try to walk on at Clemson. And reminder, this is when Clemson was on the rise. Not exactly easy task to do, but you got to give credit to him. He believed in himself. This is something a lot of people didn't know about him as well, and it really helped on his game and his development. His true freshman season, he wound up redshirting, but here's the kicker. He put on 21 pounds that year, which is very important if you want to play for a top 25 team and you're only 5'10". Putting on that weight, it helped him out so much in practice and in the games. It didn't take long for the coaching staff to notice that this short, 5'10", awkward-looking, unathletic-looking white dude is destroying us in practice. We got to get this guy some playing time. That's what they did. In his freshman year, 2015, he had 33 catches for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. Not too shabby. His sophomore year, while battling some injuries, he only played in 11 games, but he had 44 catches for right at 500 yards again and 6 touchdowns. But most importantly, the game winner against Alabama in the national championship. The next 2 seasons, we can really breeze through these because there's not much to talk about. He was a very solid wide receiver. 2017 and 14 games played, had 60 catches for 600 yards and 3 touchdowns. And last but not least, in his final year in 2018, played in 15 games, had 49 catches, 500 yards, and 1 touchdown. He finished his collegiate career with 2,133 receiving yards and 15 touchdowns. I'd say that's pretty dang good for a 2-star recruit and walk-on. Was Hunter Renfrow a receiver, a player that you had to really lock in and focus on? He could single-handedly go out there and win the game, had 250 receiving yards by himself? No, absolutely not. But here's what he was. He was every coach's dream. A guy you could count on. He had for sure hands. You never had to worry about him, and he was a great safety valve for Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. But with him not fitting what most NFL teams and scouts are looking for in a standout or star wide receiver, he fell in the draft. It wasn't until the 5th round with the 149th overall pick he'd get selected by the Oakland Raiders. Yes, that's right, you heard me correctly. At the time, they were still called Oakland. It didn't take long for Renfrow to make some noise because he wound up starting his rookie season. It's a very similar situation to what happened in Clemson. When he got there and he was putting all that work in practice, it impressed the Raiders. So they said, you know what, we got to start this guy. He did get banged up that rookie season. He only started 4 games, and in 13 total games played, he had 49 catches for 605 yards and 4 touchdowns. That is what I will label as solid and respectable numbers. Fast forward time into 2020, he got even better. In 16 games played, started 6 of those, had 56 catches for 656 yards and 2 touchdowns. Here was the breakout year though, 2021. This is where he had a whopping 103 catches for over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. It's as simple as this. The guy went off. There's nothing more to say about it. He was named a Pro Bowler that year. When that season came to the end, the Raiders were like, man, we got to keep this guy. We got to extend him. And they gave him a 2-year, $32 million extension. Sounds great, right? But unfortunately, this was the pinnacle of Hunter Renfrow's career. Right after signing that extension, in the following season, this is where everything would start crumbling. In week 2 against the Arizona Cardinals, he wound up fumbling not once, but twice. And one of those was the game-losing fumble. What was so bad about his 2 fumbles is he fumbled twice in 3 plays. The remainder of that 2022 season, he was dealing with concussions all year long. He appeared in 10 games, only started 1 of those, and had 36 catches for 330 yards. Outside of him having those 2 costly fumbles against the Cardinals, he was also having some drops. I emphasize the word drops because Hunter Renfrow and drops, that's not something you put in the same sentence. It didn't go together. It was very uncanny of him to be dropping the football because, like I said previously, he was for sure hands. When you threw it his way when he was at Clemson or early on in his career as a Raider, you knew he was coming down with it. But in that 2022 season, that's where everything, it just wasn't looking right. To be honest with you, he just didn't look like his normal self, and I knew it back then, and a lot of you watching this video, you're probably thinking about it now. Yeah, he didn't look right. You don't gotta be a rocket scientist to put 2 and 2 together. I believe the concussions, they had a play in that. Those concussions he dealt with most certainly affected his playing ability. But despite that, he came back in 2023. Everyone had high hopes for him, but it was another disappointing season. Only started 3 games, had 25 catches for 255 yards. We also got to mention and bring up, because I already know the Raider fans, they are flying to the comment section, Matt, what about McDaniels? And yes, I'm getting to it. A lot of people out here believe a main reason for Renfrow's downfall is also because of Josh McDaniels. I'm not going to sit up here and say he is the sole reason for Renfrow's downfall, but here's what I will say. He definitely played a part in it. You hear people say the term and phrase recipe for success, but with McDaniels coming to the Raiders and Renfrow dealing with all those concussions, that was a recipe for disaster. It got to the point where in the offseason after the year 2023, in March of 2024, he was officially released by the Raiders. Reminder, this is the same team that just gave him a 2-year, $32 million extension. $16 million a year for a wide receiver? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that is not chump change. That's some serious doubloons. It's crazy because they believed in him so much to give him that much money, and then they waive him just like that. I get it, it's a business, and at the end of the day, we can come up with all the excuses we want for him, but he wasn't performing, so they got rid of him. But here's where things really get fascinating in our story. Let me remind you, we are talking about a Pro Bowler. Why do I bring that up? I share that with you to say this. The guy's already proven himself. He can play at the highest of high levels. So you would think after being released by the Raiders in this most recent offseason, somebody out there would pick him up. Hunter Renfrow would be a solid slot wide receiver for many teams out there. But weirdly enough, and this is a part of the whole disappearing thing, nobody went after him. And for this most recent entire NFL season, he was a free agent. He didn't play football. And that's why everybody and their mama has been on Reddit, social media saying, what in the world happened to Hunter Renfrow? Where's this guy at? One post state, what happened to Hunter Renfrow? That 2021 season was magical. Does he still have anything left in the tank? I feel like McDaniels did him dirty. No team has been in a rush to sign him. Tells you all you need to know how other teams view his skill set, someone replied. I think it tells you all you need to know about his concussion history. It's hard to keep hands on the ball while unconscious. After that nice 2021 season, defenses got real physical and it worked. It's mostly to do with the fact that the draft is right around the corner and teams will look to see if they can get similar production from a cheaper player on a friendlier contract. He'll be signed after the draft by someone. Well, fast forward time, as we know, he was not signed. I could continue to read you off all these comments, but Everybody's saying the same thing, and I don't want to waste your time. Ball security, concussions, and McDaniels ruined them. You get the point. Here's some different ones we're going to take a look at. Raiders made the playoffs with him as their number one receiver, and then he just fell off the face of the earth. He was never quite the same after his last concussion. Combine that with his small frame and occasional ball security issues, and that'll have him on the outs. The real answer is that he was pretty badly concussed in week 2 against us in 2022, referring to the Cardinals game we already talked about. But the coaching staff had him, I think they meant to say, out there anyway. And then in OT, Isaiah Simmons, who simply does not know how to tackle, used his helmet as a battering ram and crashed into Renfrow's head. Fumble 6, game over. Somebody said, and this got over 1.2 likes or upvotes, whatever you call them on Reddit, I still find it crazy that a guy with this build made it into the league at all, LMAO. If you go to his Instagram, there has not been a post, ironically enough, since he's been released in 2023. The same thing goes for Twitter. He hasn't posted on there either. That is the newest of new updates on Hunter Renfrow. If you know anything about him, fill us in the comment section. As where it stands right now, it looks like Hunter Renfrow did what my dream is. He got the bag and he got out there. He dipped. Obviously, I'm joking when I say that, but let's be serious here before we end off the video. Is his NFL career over? Well, short answer is I have no idea. It looks like potentially it's going to be over because think about it. If a team wasn't interested in picking him up last year, why would they pick him up this year or the year after or whenever? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he is only 29 years old, so he still has some gas left in the tank. But another thing to note is he does have a daughter. I think he only has one daughter, so you know he's probably focused on raising her. Has a wife, has a kid, and according to his Instagram, he looks like a nice family man. I don't want to sit up here and say I don't think he cares about football anymore. It's more so of I think he's moved on to other adventures in his life. Realistically speaking, here's what I think went down. He realized, you know what? I had a bunch of good years, made a bunch of money. I'm dealing with these concussions. I just don't think it's worth it anymore. I think he was in the boat and in the position of, all right, if somebody picks up my contract, I'll play. If they don't, it's not a big deal. I could sit up here for the next 10 minutes and try to speculate. So instead of doing that, let's do this. I'm curious. Let me know your thoughts down below. But